We have a special guest with us today. It's the congressperson from the Hawaii 2nd District who's now running for president on a peace platform to end our regime change wars. It's Tulsi Gabbard. Hi, Tulsi. How are you?
Right. Aloha, Jimmy. Good morning.
Hello.
Good morning to you. Good afternoon. I am in New Hampshire today, so I appreciate it's about 1:30 in the afternoon here. I appreciate you getting up early so we get a chance to talk.
This isn't early for normal people. It's just early. It's just early for me because I'm a nightclub comedian. So you have. I just want to talk. We're going to talk about the new bill that you introduced about marijuana, but I just want to go over a couple of tweets that you tweeted out. You said multiple studies and statistics show that in states where medical marijuana is legal, there have been significant decreases in opioid addiction and opioid-related deaths. We've reported that on the show. Hemp is an incredibly versatile, environmentally restorative crop that has great potential to make things like clothing, paper, houses, and more. We must eliminate the obstacles blocking farmers and innovators from pursuing these opportunities. States with medical marijuana have seen a correlating drop in opioid deaths. Jeff Sessions' decisions will exacerbate an inhumane and ineffective system that tears families apart. We need criminal justice reform that reduces recidivism and the share of people that we lock up. The last tweet, I've met with parents of children with epilepsy, cancer, and other serious and chronic conditions who are fighting for greater research and legal use of medical marijuana and who have rallied behind my bill 1227, the Ending Federal Marijuana Prohibition Act. All right, so that's fantastic. Let me just get to... Okay. So tell me about the latest act that you've introduced and what exactly you want to do with it.
Well, look, as you just laid out through those different tweets, that really focuses on a number of different areas, people that are impacted by this ongoing federal prohibition on marijuana. I want to add another that has to do with our veterans, veterans who are coming home dealing with serious post-traumatic stress, chronic pain due to combat-related injuries, traumatic brain injury, a number of things that right now, because of this federal prohibition, they are limited to what the VA can offer, which is basically they can give them highly addictive opioids. So even if a veteran says no, a veteran who lives in a state that has legalized even medicinal marijuana, if a veteran says no thanks, I don't want the opioids, I'd like to get a prescription for medical marijuana, the VA docs are not allowed to because of this federal prohibition that still exists. I just met with a veteran here in New Hampshire yesterday in Manchester who shared his own story. He was blown up in over two deployments 29 times. He came home, got 100% disability rating from the VA. He's still dealing with a lot of both physical and mental challenges and issues. The VA put him on these opioids to deal with the pain that he was suffering with. And then all of a sudden the VA said, nope, no more, you're good to go, when he clearly wasn't, cut him off cold turkey. He had no real transition out of it. And he ended up, as he put it, getting into a very dark place with drugs like heroin and other things that really had a serious negative impact on his life. So as you mentioned, I mean, this is affecting those dealing with opioid addiction. This is affecting farmers, this is affecting small business owners, this is affecting our veterans and those who are locked up in our broken criminal justice system because of this prohibition. And so that's what my bill seeks to do.
So,
to end prohibition, very simply.
So the new bill, I don't know, could you show it? Is it called the Marijuana Data Collection Act? Is that what we're talking about?
There's two. Let's talk about the one that you have on your screen first. We introduced two pieces of legislation. The one you're referring to, the Marijuana Data Collection Act, was introduced specifically to commission a national study by the National Academy of Sciences to gather data, statistics, and information from states that have legalized either adult use of marijuana or medical marijuana to dispel the myths and misinformation that's out there about marijuana, and that's most often used by opponents to ending the prohibition. They say a whole number of things. Many of them are not rooted in facts and information. They'll say, well, hey, look, there's no studies, there's no reports, there's no facts. And they refuse to acknowledge the fact that because of the federal prohibition, there's not a lot of research that's allowed to be done by quote unquote official sources. So that's what this bill seeks to do, to get this National Academy of Sciences study that will be objective and that can provide facts and information on how legalizing marijuana or medical marijuana, depending on the states, has had an impact on people's lives, on our criminal justice system, on our economy, on people's health and well-being and medicine.
So do you have any co-sponsors on this?
The main co-sponsor on both of these bills is Congressman Don Young from Alaska. He is Republican, and he feels very strongly about these issues as I do. We disagree on a number of other issues, but on these two issues, we recognize that ultimately what it comes down to is fairness and freedom of choice for individuals as well as for states.
And so the Marijuana Data Collection Act is just that you want to have at the ready information about the effects of marijuana and on personal use, on our society, on veterans, on people with PTSD. So you want to have just basically this is you just asking for information on what we're dealing with so we can attack it in the correct way or deal with it in the correct way.
Absolutely. Because the problem is that you have opponents of ending the federal prohibition, oftentimes citing statistics and figures and data that are biased and that unfortunately are not often rooted in fact. And are not telling the truth about the impacts that are there. For example, you'll hear some folks saying, well, in states that have legalized marijuana, there's been an uptick in car accidents.
Not true.
Right. What they're failing to say is for those who are causing the accidents, all the other things that are in their bloodstream, oftentimes alcohol, oftentimes other substances. And, maybe there's a trace of marijuana, maybe there's not. But once again, they point to, well, we can't legalize marijuana because you're going to have more car accidents, which is, as you said, it's just not true.
So let me ask, how popular or unpopular is this with your colleagues in Congress? Just the data collection part.
Well, this is one that we are actually quite optimistic about. We're circulating it amongst our colleagues now. The organization NORML has really taken the lead in advocacy and organizing in Congress to get more co-sponsors from both sides of the aisle. Because when it comes right down to it, however you feel about marijuana personally, how can any member of Congress be opposed to facts and the truth?
Well,
and providing a report.
We're about to see. That's
it's
the beauty.
It's a tough argument to counter, though. You got to admit.
Yes. So now listen. So I was doing a little research, and I found there's three. So there's the Marijuana Justice Act of 2018, Ending Federal Marijuana Prohibition Act of 2017, and the Department of Veteran Affairs Policy for Medical Cannabis Use Act of 2018. Now, were you a sponsor of all these?
I am the original co-sponsor of the Ending Federal Marijuana Prohibition Act, which we have just reintroduced a couple of weeks ago. My Republican co-sponsor from the last Congress is no longer in Congress. So now Congressman Don Young is my Republican co-sponsor for the bill to end the federal marijuana prohibition. The other two pieces of legislation have been co-sponsored or introduced by other members. I'm a co-sponsor of them. But the reason why we've taken the approach that we have in our bill, the Ending Federal Marijuana Prohibition Act now of 2019, is it very simply and directly takes marijuana off of the controlled substances list. So it then addresses all of the other issues like the one that the VA bill seeks to address. It makes it so that you no longer have that federal constraint and that prohibition in place. Also, it is the only bipartisan bill in both the House and the Senate that ends the federal marijuana prohibition, which I think is really important for us, both in Congress, given the divided House and Senate, as well as for the country, as we're seeing more states that are predominantly Democrat, other states predominantly Republican, all making progress to legalize marijuana.
Now, I've read stories, I think we've even covered them on the show, about how marijuana helps soldiers returning with PTSD just with their ability to sleep that it calms their nightmares and they're able to get a night's sleep. So that's just one example of a much less lethal drug, or a much with less side effects than the ones they're prescribing right now, as far as, because we know we're living in an opioid epidemic. And Ron likes this. I forget what the statistic is, but there's a big number, like 20. Do you know the number? How many veterans commit suicide every day?
The average is 22 every single day, veterans who take their own lives.
Yeah. So
it's heartbreaking it's heartbreaking on its own as a statistic, but as you also look to what these men and women have survived in combat, been able to make that trip home, come back into the arms of their loved ones, and then to be dealing with the challenges that they are, and then to lose that battle here at home. It's unacceptable.
Okay, well, so I saw a video that said that if you smoke marijuana, you're gonna get a gun and jump out a window. That doesn't happen.
I've never heard such a story.
You need to watch Reefer Madness. It's a fantastic piece of propaganda. Well, listen. Well, so this is great. I really appreciate you doing this. Now, Rand Paul is usually the guy people would think of would be on board for something like this, right? Because he talks about it a lot. Is he on board for this in the Senate?
I think we've reached out to his team, and we're hoping to be able to work with him on this legislation.
Okay, that'd be great. That would be great to see. Now, if I can ask you, I don't think I asked you when we had you on before about student loan debt. And what do you have? What are your thoughts on student loan debt? Do you have a plan for it?
We're working on a comprehensive plan that'll be part of my presidential platform. But I think some of the things that we've got to address are the fact that both in the government as well as private banks and the financial institutions are continuing to make profits off of our students and now later adults. There are so many people who are saddled and burdened with this debt, the student loan debt, for decades. My father-in-law is a public school teacher in Hawaii. He is in his early 60s. He teaches high school, and he's still paying off his student debt loan. So this is something that we've got to address about why it is that the government and private institutions are making money off of these ever-increasing interest rates. I think we've also got to try to look at what is the driver of this rising cost of education, where it's continually getting more and more and more expensive to provide a 4-year degree. And I think we've also got to look at the cultural norms in our society that somehow say, unless you have a college degree, you're not going to be quote unquote successful. You're not going to be able to get a good job, when for a lot of folks, that's just not for them. They want to get straight into the workforce. They want to get vocational training. They want to pursue a different path in their life. And that's totally okay. Last thing I'll mention on that is technology. With the internet and with technology today, education and higher education is far more accessible to people now than it's ever been before. We've got to leverage and maximize the potential that provides to be able to increase opportunity for people to get that education, and also drive down the cost. So I think there's a whole host of things we've got to look at here.
So how do you come down on Bernie Sanders' free college proposal?
I signed on to the bill, his College for All bill that's in the House of Representatives. But again, I think that doesn't get to the root cause of the problem of this ever increasing cost of education. And we've got to look at this. We've got to look at the whole picture and not just one piece of it.
What do you think is the driver of these exorbitant tuition rates?
I don't know. It's just something that we're researching. There's a lot of different things. We're seeing very, very high salaries in some of these institutions. We're seeing how there is high overhead and waste in certain places. But we're looking at public institutions and private institutions to try to get to the heart of why the cost continues to increase, especially in some places more than others. And every state is different as well in how they choose to fund higher education, and therefore then how much of that cost is passed on to the student.
So I just also want to, while we have you, I just wanted to say thank you for sticking up for freedom of speech and unequivocally standing up for actual journalism and speaking out against the prosecution of journalism in the Julian Assange case. I think that was fantastic.
Thank you. Likewise to you. I know you have been such a strong voice on this at a time when it's so absolutely necessary. When these freedoms are under attack, we can't afford to be silent.
Well, I think also what people don't realize is that Julian Assange is not being, they're not going after him right now and legally over his involvement in the 2016 election. This all has to do with him revealing war crimes by our government through Chelsea Manning's work. So that's what this is about. People, this has nothing to do with Russiagate or WikiLeaks, or the DNC server or John Podesta. This has everything to do with exposing the powerful and exposing our war crimes.
Right.
And go ahead.
Right. And creating this climate and culture of fear to send a strong message to anyone else who dares to do the same, to anyone else who dares to speak out and speak the truth and to shine a light on these things that are happening. If you do something or if you say something that the government doesn't like, what we have seen just happen is their message to say there will be consequences.
Okay, well, Tulsi, thanks so much for sharing this with us, and thanks for talking about it. Thanks for introducing the legalization of medical or ending the federal prohibition on marijuana.
Did she take big donations, and did she make the debate stage?
Oh yes, you did make the debate stage, right? We already congratulated you on that, didn't we? I thought we did.
Thank you. I think you did on your on a previous show. I just want to say thank you because I know you have been incredible in getting the word out and made it possible for us to hit those 65,000 individual contributions. So we are in for at least the first two debates. We're hearing that they are going to be changing the standards for the debates to follow after that. So stay tuned. We're just going to continue building our momentum, building our movement in this campaign.
Okay, well, I think once people see you on the debate stage, it'll be much harder for them to deny you after that, but they probably will try. So much more power to you and good luck. And we'll look forward to seeing you on the debate stage. Now, you don't take corporate PAC money. I know that, right?
We don't take any PAC money. We don't take any lobbyist contributions. Our campaign is 100% fueled by individual people. The vast majority of them are giving small dollar contributions. Some of them are giving the maximum amount, but all of them are doing so because they believe in our message and our mission in this campaign, as you mentioned before, to end these regime change wars, this new Cold War and nuclear arms race, and take the peace dividend that we are creating by bringing the trillions of dollars we're spending on these wars and weapons and investing it in serving the needs of Americans all across this country, investing in our communities and our people.
You know, it's funny. I did a show last night, and you've taken a lot of heat for proposing things that everybody in the country is for. Like, you're not a radical or a fringe person. You just have the guts to stand up to the powerful and tell the truth about what the majority of Americans want. For instance, what the majority of Americans want is health care. What the majority of Americans want is to end our regime change wars. That's what the majority of Americans want, but people don't realize that even the Democratic leadership is to the right of Republican voters, because Republican voters are for single-payer health care and for ending the wars. The Democratic leadership right now is not for either of those things. They're to the right of the... So that's how messed up our politics is, that, the Princeton study revealed that we do live in an oligarchy, and I think people like you not taking corporate PAC money and advocating for the things that the majority of the public wants instead of the majority of the donors want is exactly what we need today.
It's exactly what we need today. And not only are you correct in saying the Democratic Party leadership is out of step with the vast majority of the American people, but so is the Republican Party leadership.
Yes.
And this is where people who come in and say, as a guy did this morning, he's like, I just want to make sure that we defeat Donald Trump and that we choose the best person to do that. Well, I tell you what, our message in this campaign is resonating, as you said, with Democrats and Republicans and independents and libertarians who don't want to just see change for the sake of change, but they want to see the right kind of leadership and change in this country that accomplishes those things, that ends these regime change wars, that ends this nuclear arms race, and invests in our people in things like healthcare, education, affordable housing, infrastructure, clean air, clean water, things that we all care about in our lives.
Yeah, this is common sense stuff. This isn't radical fringe stuff. What's radical about it is that you have the courage to actually stand up for it and fight for it. Because what we're always told on the left is compromise, don't fight for what you believe in, and don't be a purist. Well, if advocating for something that's at 70% of the country's for and 90% of the Democratic base is for makes you a purist, then I'll take that moniker. I want to be an advocate for the majority. But thank you so much again for coming on. Is there anything else you want to say before we say goodbye?
We're about to hit the road here. We're having a house party with some of the marijuana advocates and activists here in New Hampshire in just a few minutes. And so we're looking forward to sitting down and talking with them.
Yes, we look forward to sitting down at the marijuana house. All right. Thank you very much, Congresswoman. I appreciate you taking time, and good luck on the trail. We'll talk to you again.
Great to see you always, Jimmy. Take care.
Bye-bye. Next live Jimmy Dore show is June 5th. That's a Wednesday at Hermosa Beach Comedy Club in Hermosa Beach, California. Go to jimmydorcomedy.com for a link for all tickets. We might be coming to your town. And if you love the show, please become a patron. Please support the show. We give you hours of bonus material every week. And please click that bell and make sure you're subscribed. Even if you think you are already subscribed, they unsubscribe people every day. Just check. Thanks for your support.